Hey everybody, welcome back to Battle Ready Inc., the channel all about bringing you as much nerdy content as possible to show you what is out there in the world. Today for you, I'm going to do a review video and a first impressions of Dragon Village M. Should be pretty cool. I really enjoy this game, so already telling you there, it's pretty positive. If you're new to the channel, make sure you give us a like and subscribe, as we do all this mostly for fun, but we'd like to do it as a career. So if you can support us here or on Patreon, the link is going to be in the description below. That would be super appreciated. And without that further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so already artwork style here is pretty straightforward, very anime inspired. It starts off kind of cutesy, but then as you can see, the dragons get really cool and really in-depth there. Alright, so jumping in here, your interface, your HUD, it's kind of involved at first. It seems like it. It's got all this stuff splashing across the screen, all these things at the bottom. But as for most phone games, this is pretty common, not out of the way, too crazy here. Most of these actually aren't even too terribly important, at least not right off. When you first get into the game, a lot of these things are locked, and as you progress, they open up for you, which is really cool. So the premise behind this, the kind of its own unique flair is that everything in this game is all dragons. So I've got this pulled up. This has every dragon in the game. It's just a little book that kind of shows what's available. At the very top tier here, we've got very majestic looking, even though it looks a little more like a unicorn than a dragon, but, I'm not here to judge. Very majestic looking, right? So the art style is super cool and very unique to this game in particular. It's all 2D, but as you can see, it's got nice fluid motions and animations and things like that for all the attacks. Like each dragon kind of feels like its own thing, even though they've got not everyone, but most of the dragons still have an element version of the same dragon repeated, but each one still feels unique individually to itself, which is still pretty nice. So combat, that's usually one of the big things for these kind of games. It's definitely a PvP or PvE focused game. So it's a typical build your team. You got you pick your 5 dragons, and you go out and fight other monsters. Right? Pretty straightforward. However, unlike a lot of other games, this one isn't turn-based. It's real-time controlling your team, and I'll show you what I mean by that when we jump in here. So you'll pick your 5 starting dragons out, right? And you'll go into your battle here, and they'll all be out there at once, and then you'll have your enemies here. And what they're doing is they just attack regularly at intervals here and doing their skills. However, let me turn auto battle off here so I don't use anything not needed. I think the thing that really sets this apart from other games is so you have your different dragons down here. It's saying their skills are ready, right? And so what we can do is you click, and what we do is drag out your skill. So this guy, he shoots things in a line. It's just a straight dash attack, and boom, hits everything at once in line. And that's how all these skills work. Now, he's got kind of an AoE, so it hits everyone in a line. We'll have this guy here who we can drag out, and we'll single target. That's his special thing. So it's very involved, right? So you can click it, but then you don't get it. It randomizes where the target goes. So if you do it yourself, then you get a pick where the attack goes, which I think is super awesome. Gives you a little more control over the battle and how things play out. And so same thing, this green guy, right? He's a healer, so I can set his AoE. He can do 3 guys at once and just drop it right there, and boom, he goes in his little animation there and heals the whole team. Also, another thing that kind of makes this game its own, in with the unique combat system, is your tamers here. So there's multiple dragon tamers. They all do different things, but you can click their skill and boom, it takes effect across the entire battlefield. doing whatever the special skill is. In this case, she comes out and decreases all the enemy's defense all at once, right? There's multiple tamers, and they all play into effect in this game. So not are you only just building a team anymore of your different units, but you also get to pick a tamer, and the tamer can affect things. All the tamers have multiple skills. They have their one primary that affects the battle when you click it. It's a one-time use per battle, but then they also have passives. So you'll have a passive that increases attack damage. You'll have a passive that increases defense. You'll have my favorite. I like the speed one that increases the speed of all of your dragons. From what I've played so far in other mobile games that are kind of focused on combat like this, they don't have that extra element, right, to the battlefield. You pick your teams, and it's usually each monster has 2, 3 skills, and you pick the skill you want to use, pick the target, and then they execute, right? And you get to take your time with it and really pick it at, and pick and choose what you want to do. But it also kind of slows it down, I think. There are really good games out there, and I'll talk about them in another video probably. But for this one here, the fast-pacedness to the whole encounter is really nice. So just because you don't activate skills doesn't mean that the combat slows down. As you saw, I wasn't clicking on any of my skills, and so they were just shooting basic attacks. So it keeps you kind of intrigued in the game, keeps you wanting to be aware. Now there is an auto battle feature where they use the skills for you, but the prioritization on it is not all that great. It'll choose, say you're trying to level up one dragon, it'll choose that to use that dragon skill rather than like your really powerful monster. Now you can go into your settings and change it so that way it only activates level 6 dragon skills, but for the first part of the game, you're not going to have any level 6s for a while, so until then you got to do it manually is probably best if the fights are a little harder than normal. Alright, going back into it again, showing you something else here. So the way these work is you see these dots down here at the bottom on these. This is how much mana each of these skills cost. So all these guys are just 2, not a big deal. But then you have these, the blue squares over here, which is... Yeah, I'll slow it down so that way we won't go through this fight quite so fast. These blue squares tell you how much mana you have, and it gradually fills up. So you can't just spam these off a cooldown, right? So I can't just click, use this guy's skill, and then immediately use it again, right? So he goes on cooldown, and then I can use these other guys, and the mana went down by 2 blocks because I used that skill. And what keeps the game balanced so that way you can't just, spam through everything all at once is that you burn up your mana. So if you'll have like big skills that take 3 mana to use, then you really got to like be careful of your mana management here, which adds a whole nother element. So not only are you working on timers here of when you can activate these skills again, but you're also working off of a mana system that all the dragons have to share. So just another added element to combat. So you have each dragon has their own unique skills, right? Then it costs different mana. So then you got to manage your mana so that way you don't overuse in areas you don't need to. Then you have your tamers and their passive skills that boost your dragons. Then you have the tamer skill itself, which adds some sort of property to that encounter at that exact moment, like the decreasing it by the defense by whatever percentage, depending on the skill. You can level these skills up to make them stronger, make the percentages higher. So then that's just 5, and then you can play into a fact that you can change the formation. So I've got these guys in a cross formation. I usually send a tank out front to kind of take all the hits. Got my healer and some lower level DPS, and then in the very back I've got like my big high damage DPS that he needs to be the last guy that goes down because he can win me matches if he's the only person left in the party. So playing out where you place guys, because you can rotate it so that way it's an X formation, or like a sideways T formation. So that way you just got all tanks here and a healer and like a crazy DPS in the back, things like that. So that's just more to the game and just the mechanics behind the battles. All right, so back in the book here, as you can see at the top, we've got all these different elements, right? So this is kind of the trifecta of mechanics that a lot of mobile games that like this have, where your fire beats your grass, your grass gets a bonus to fighting water, water gets a bonus to fighting fire, and so on, right? And then light and dark, they each get bonuses attacking each other, but they don't have any disadvantage for fighting the other elements. So they incorporate that feature into this, so it benefits having multiples. You can't just build one super team of 5 dragons that can beat everything, right? Because someone's going to show up with element advantage against you, and it's going to be a major uphill battle that otherwise would have been an easy cakewalk, right, against other teams of different elements. So again, that's another thing that you have to take into account when you go into your different fights in this game. So I think that just adds another element, no pun intended, to the combat system of this and how involved each and every encounter can be to really get you thinking before you go into any fight. So there is an adventure mode here, and so you got your normal, and this is when you go through the story, and there's 12 chapters. Each chapter has 7 missions. And I will say that I really have enjoyed this story so far in this game. Um, you actually get to choose your character at the beginning. Do you want to be the male character, male antagonist or protagonist, and the or the female? I chose the female because she's the one with the healer dragon, and healers are kind of hard to come by as DPS are pretty common. So that's who I went with for this, and it's definitely helped me out. Um, but it actually flows with the story of who these people are. You'll all the characters, all the tamers that you can acquire to use on your teams are characters within the story who are part of your team, and you go through all these trials and tribulations, and finding out who your character is. They've got the classic, they've lost their memories sort of deal, and towards the end you're recovering them. And it's your typical save the world sort of scenario, but it's very involved. It's very drawn out, and they very climactic every time you come to the end of a chapter here. So it makes getting to the end worthwhile. You want to know what happens, right? You're not just farming, getting coins or getting diamonds or what have you, or dragons. You're actually working through a story that you want to know what happens. So I think that adds further playability in the beginning to get you drawn into the game. Once you complete the story, then you start to master these different techniques of how the game operates, and then you want to actually just play the game to play the game rather than play the game to find the story. So I think that's a good way that they kind of spread it all out and work through different segments. Is they draw you in with the story and the really nice artwork and the combat system, the very unique combat system, and as you progress, then you find these other aspects of the game, and then you want to continue building and building that keeps you playing. So as you progress, right, you will level up your dragons. As you can see here, I got some level 50s. These are all 5 stars, right? But as you go down my list, they go to 4 stars, and eventually to 3 and 2 and 1. The 1s and 2s, you use those to power up your other ones. You go into the level up menu here, and I can pick this level 45 guy, and then I can use these lower people here. To power them up, right, and give them experience rather than going through the story and playing the same missions over and over to slowly level up and grind up. But that's just one way to make your dragons more powerful. There's this whole list on the side here of different ways. So rather than just the classic, oh, I got to keep leveling up and leveling up, oh, I'm max level, okay, we're done. There's way more to it than that, which is really nice and in-depth, which I like about it. So you got your evolve here, right? So what that does is it takes them from these little yellow stars, and then you can bring them up to purple stars, and eventually you can bring them up to red stars, which is what this guy is. He's the max evolution of his form. So he starts out as like this plain white dragon, and then you bring him up to purple, and then all this armor comes on him, right? Which is super cool. And then you bring him up to the final stage, evolving for the last time, and then he's got all these floating spikes around him. And this is just one of the starter level dragons, right? This is a very basic design compared to the big dragons that are out there. Like this guy here, once he's maxed out, he's gonna look super awesome because he's a what they call a natural 5, a nat 5. So when you summon him, he starts out at 5 stars. He doesn't start at 3, then you got to make him a 4 and then a 5. He just starts out at a 5. So his artwork and his animations are super cool. And speaking of their stars, right? So what you do is if you start the game out, you'll have some 3 stars, right? And what you do is you power them up. So for every star, that's another 10 levels you can achieve with them. So 3 stars, you level them all the way up to 30, and then what you can do is what they call a rank up, or I prefer to call it a star up, right? So once they're max level for their particular stars, you can come in here and use other stars of the same level to combine into them, and it raises them to the next level stars. So this guy, if I put 5 stars in there, it'll make him a 6 star. And 6 stars are the highest tier, the most powerful dragons in the game. Not every dragon has that potential. Depending on what they start out as, they can the 3 stars can go up to 4 stars. The 4 stars can go up to 5 stars, and the 5 stars can go up to 6 stars. So you want to have all nat 5s. Some of them can actually go beyond what their normal cap is, but you kind of lose the benefit of that. You don't want to take a 3 star all the way up to a 6 star because they're not going to be as good as taking a natural 5 star up to a 6 star, right? The potential differences are just not there. So while you can do it, and they will be strong, I'm not saying they won't be strong. They'll definitely be strong, but comparatively to a nat 5 going up to a 6 star at max level would still probably outperform it. Going beyond that, they have this neat little extra mechanic called closeness. This is like your bond to your dragon, right? So you can get these fruits, and fruits are very easy to get, not difficult at all. And what you'll do is you'll feed them, filling up this the heart here. And once you hit 100%, the closeness level will go up. And what that does is it increases these basic stats. So your HP, your defense, and your attack will all go up. So initially, just going up super easy, just from 1 to 2, increased his HP by 1,500, and then 25 and 25 for defense and attack. And so that's just another added boost that you can go on to make them stronger. So level up, evolving, ranking up, the closeness, putting runes on them. So this game does operate in runes as well. You can outfit them with different runes that do different things. Like this rune I've got on him gives him plus 14% HP. It's actually a pretty bad rune. I need to replace it. I just haven't found a good replacement yet in the game to put on him. And what they do is they'll have substats also that get increased. So percentage increases are always good. So then you go back to the closeness, which is just a basic flat increase. Once you max that out and then you put this rune on there, then it increases it further by whatever the percentage is. So multiple ways, very in-depth ways of increasing the power of your dragons. So all in all, for a combat team building gotcha game, I would rate this probably about a 7.8 or so out of 10. Just because the art style is very unique to it. It's 2D, but it also feels like a 3D game, right? Each dragon is very unique to itself and whatever it is. I really like that aspect about it. The combat system is entirely unique to this game. I haven't encountered another one like it, where you get to aim your skills. It's in real time. That's very, very cool. Acquiring dragons, you go into your summons here, right? And then you can spend your diamonds here to get your 10 plus 1 summons. So 11 summons for 3,000 diamonds. You're thinking 3,000 diamonds, that's a lot. It's really not. You get diamonds for everything in this game. Doing your dailies, doing your weeklies, monthlies, completing story modes, all through every level of difficulty, you're getting diamonds, which is huge. And it makes it so much easier to get dragons in this game compared to other gacha games where you have to grind really difficultly to getting whatever currency, real cash shop currency, to power or to get more monsters in that particular game. This game makes free to play very, very friendly. It does have some pay to win options, but they're not like killer over the top options. It's more for the collectors who are willing to spend money on diamonds to get even more summons because they want to get every dragon in the game. They can buy specific eggs. If you look down here at the bottom left, there's these different eggs, and they get guaranteed like 5 stars, right? So, you know, those hard to get dragons, you get one guaranteed every time you buy that egg. So there are some pay to win aspects to it, but the free to play is so nice in comparison to other games, which I think that bumps this game way up in the free to play category tremendously. Just because of that, of how friendly it is to giving you the tools you need to get the good stuff, right? So you're not being outperformed by all these people dropping crazy money. Some aspects that I wish, the reason I don't give it a higher score is probably because it doesn't have an overarching end game yet. There's not like a bunch of raids. There are dungeons that you can do that help you farm different things that you need to power up your dragons and get better runes. There's different dungeons for that, but they haven't incorporated raids or more in game that's harder to acquire, right? So like certain dragons that take long periods of time to get, not just blind luck. I think they should incorporate stuff like that to help give in players more reasons to play rather than just PvP and just making some crazy powerful team. So that's kind of what you get to at the end game is being able to beat the tower, which if you lose your dragons, then you have to find a replacement dragon for it. And so that's just having a good selection of dragons, not really lots of powerful ones. And PvP, which is all about building this one crazy powerful team that no one else can beat. So you just focus on getting the best runes for them, powering those runes up, maxing out the dragons as much as possible, 6-starring all of them, leveling them all up to level 60 and so on. We need other aspects that focus on like teamwork, right? So where you could go in with multiple players at once to fight a big boss, like a big dungeon boss, but on the level of needing 3 players to all coordinate together to beat. I think something like that would be a really cool addition to the game. It's not terribly old. It has been out for a year, but I believe in the US it's only been out since January, and we're September now, so 9 months in the US, I believe. It was rated in the top 3 in Korea last year in 2017, so it does have the potential to continue on to evolving into a better and better game. We're still relatively early on, so it's a good time to jump into it now to start building up. So when the new content comes out, you're right on the doorstep of, all right, I've got a solid team. Oh man, new content, here we go. And you're ready to jump into that next level that the game's going to eventually reach. So with that, I hope you like this video. Remember, like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I will review other games that are out there that I've played or I know of others that have played that have recommended. I'll try to avoid relatively as much as possible reviewing bad games that are a waste of time. So if I'm going to spend the time to sink into it to see how good it is, and review it, then I'm hoping it'll be good, so that way I'm not wasting y'all's time. But if I do come across bad games, I will definitely let y'all know. I'll put a review out and tell you how I feel about it and if you should avoid it or play it. This game I feel is a great time to jump in and play because it's about to take off. I have a feeling that this game is about to explode and with new updates and become a very top tier level mobile game that lots of people are going to start playing. So with that, we'll see you next time.